Food is free.
COVID is an environmental issue.
I mean, cleanliness is next to godliness.
Now is the time to really speak up.
You know, we're past the point of no return. There's really no other point to art.
Hello, friends. This is Conversations. My name is Big Ben Hillman. Thanks for tuning in. On today's episode, I had a chance to sit down with another good friend of mine. His name is Patiño Vazquez. Patiño is a Cuban-American musician and artist, and his musical style blends traditional Cuban song with rock and roll and a little bit of rhythm and blues. Currently, Patiño runs an organization called Fireseed Arts. And Fireseed is a company that creates musical instruments and art pieces out of recycled and repurposed materials. And you can find out more about what Patiño does with Fireseed Arts at fireseedartstudios.com. So I wanted to sit down and talk with Patiño because I know that Patiño is a proud vegan, and he's also a concerned environmentalist, which is one of the reasons why he does what he does with recycled and repurposed materials. And I wanted to talk with him a little bit about the relationship between veganism and environmentalism, and specifically the effects that meat consumption has on the environment. So now, here's my conversation with Patiño Vazquez.
And I started working with you with, I think it was still called Mondo Sweetie.
Oh, yeah.
Mondo Sweetie, which kind of, if I understand correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on the sort of timeline here, but it's sort of morphed into what became the Sugar Kings, more or less.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of success with the Sugar Kings.
Yeah, it keeps going. I mean, even through 2020, I consider it a success that we're still playing.
So for anybody that doesn't know, I mean, can you just kind of give a brief sort of synopsis of the concept behind what Mondo Sweetie,
Sugar Kings, yeah.
Sugar Kings, what used to be Mondo Sweetie, now Sugar Kings.
Yeah. I wanted it to be based in the Cuban clave, and so whatever we did, whether we did an original or we did a classic traditional tune or we did a cover of somebody else's music, and I wanted to have a reference to Latin music in it. So even if the song's in English, it doesn't matter. Like, we'll put a Latin rhythm to it.
A lot of the appeal that, at least from my experience, what I've seen, the most appeal with the audiences seems to be when you guys do mix up the English or language rock kind of tunes with the Latin feel. That seems to really grab people for some reason.
If we go too far into like Cuban son or something like that, you know, people they're gonna, oh, I don't understand the language. So they'll come up with an excuse to not dig it, right? So we'll throw in a Pink Floyd song in there, or we'll throw in a Jimi Hendrix song in there, or we'll throw some Curtis Mayfield in there, or we'll throw some Dr. John in there. You know, whatever we're feeling and vibing from the audience.
So I wanted to get into some stuff with you, man, because I remember, well, it's just about 4 years ago now, as it happened. You know, I had kind of made some statements on social media talking about, the environment, because I think really it's the single most important issue that we face today. I mean, the situation's really dire. You know, and I've always been of the opinion, you know, I'm not really interested in having debates with climate deniers or whatever. Like, nothing can come of that. It's like, if that's what you choose to believe. But the fact of the matter is scientists have been telling us that these things were going to occur due to the carbon in the atmosphere, you know, climate change, and everything that they said is going to happen is happening even faster than anybody had even thought it was going to. So, you know, to me, it really is an important issue. And my question at the time was like, well, why can't we take really bold measures to do something about the environmental crisis? One of the things being, you know, like, why can't we have solar panels on every house? Like, why can't we make that a goal as a country? Just say, okay, every household, every building, say it's going to become equipped with solar panels, and that's just going to be. And you know, it's like you can be a climate denier if you want to, but you can't really argue with free electricity, can you?
Well, unless you're a capitalist, you know.
Well, precisely, yes, precisely. But you know, it's so. So I remember bringing that up, and you had chimed in, and you had talked to me about the fact that agriculture and specifically the consumption of meat contribute
And dairy.
significantly.
Yeah. And dairy. I mean, there's problems with agriculture all across the board.
There is.
Yeah, yeah. But the biggest problems are just like, you know, the land mammals that need to be fed, like the amount of grain or the amount of stuff that they consume, the plant matter that they consume, and a lot of it is not natural to their diets. So they're eating lots of soy and corn, and that's arable land, and the crops that are used to feed those animals could feed the world 14 times over, right? So it's just a very inefficient system to get the same amount of calories, to get enough protein, to get enough nutrients. It seems like it's wasted on feeding these animals, and you can live without it. I mean, anyone that says that's just a preference. If you know, like I didn't give it up because I didn't like the taste or whatever, you know. I was huge into sushi and all that stuff. But the more I looked at it and the more I studied about it, and as I was creating this company that I started, Fireseed Arts, that you know, creates artwork for the sole purpose of discussing these things, discussing the environmental issues, and working with schools and education and outreach. We were looking at everything we could look at to just to challenge ourselves and see where are we contributing to, you know, where are we contributing blindly without, you know, unconsciously just doing something that may be creating a larger footprint than we intend. You know, and so it started with that awareness and just watching everything. You know, I mean, it's impractical to say, well, I can't, you know, I'm not going to drive, or I'm not going to take showers. Like,
right.
Those are two things that I kind of need to do. I think most people do.
Yes.
No, but I looked at other things that I could do, and so I repair and I reuse, and I try to help other people. I'll take other people's stuff. I mean, this whole studio is full of stuff that we've reclaimed and recaptured and kept out of the landfill. In order for that specific purpose of just. And then another aspect that I looked at was like, okay, well, I started looking at diet, you know, and, you know, I don't have the numbers here, but I can send them to you, and they're easy to find. So you just look at the amount of water that's used to create a pound of beef, right?
Yeah.
I think it's about 65 gallons of water per pound of beef. Now it's a fraction of that to grow vegetables and fruits.
Right.
The problems that we're having and that with growing fruits and vegetables, besides the, you know, jetting things around, like, you know, eating pineapples grown in Hawaii, eating papayas grown in Chile, eating lychees grown in China, whatever, and flying that stuff around the world. There's all that
uses a lot of energy.
Jet fuel. Yeah. And then you've got the problem of petrochemicals that are
right, which that's a whole other issue as well. Yeah. So do you consider yourself to be a vegan or simply vegetarian?
I was a vegetarian before I was a vegan.
Okay.
And
so anybody doesn't understand, I mean, can you just sort of break down the distinction between those two things?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, language is funny.
Yeah.
Because you would think, and I didn't know at the time that it was possible to be a vegan. Like, nobody met that when I first went vegetarian. Nobody was talking about veganism. You know, I didn't know that such a thing was possible. So a vegetarian consumes no meat, but will wear leather and will consume eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, and things like that, dairy products.
Yeah.
And then there's vegans, and that has a sort of a tiered system as well. So you have environmental vegans, you have health conscious vegans, athletes and bodybuilders, and then you have ethical vegans.
Okay.
And some people squarely fall into one camp or another. And I've found good arguments in all three of those camps, and so I became all three.
Yeah, because it seems natural to me. I mean, it seems like, environment and ethics really kind of go hand in hand. It's hard to me. I don't know. I could be just my point of view. It seems like it's hard to really separate those two things. I mean, it's an ethical issue, taking care of the environment, isn't it?
I think so too, and that's one of the critiques that the vegan community has towards environmental climate change activists in general. Is this that if you're not vegan, are you really helping the environment? And I agree. I think this is something that you can control because it's a personal choice. It's not a necessity to eat meat. It's not a necessity to consume dairy. You can live without it, and take it a step further and look for the farmers markets and buy organic and grow a garden is the most radical of all. Go back to that,
Working the land.
Working your land instead of growing grass, which is expensive and stupid. Like, grow a garden,
Yeah.
And imagine if everybody did that. Like, most gardens will produce so many tomatoes that they can't use them all, or they produce too many squashes or too many cucumbers or too many peppers, and so you end up bartering and exchanging and giving it away. Food is free. I mean, that's another concept. I mean, the whole food thing goes deep. Because all that food, every fruit and vegetable has a seed in it, and multiple seeds, Some, and those seeds give you an opportunity to grow more, So it's free, right. And what companies like Monsanto are doing, they're trying to create these genetically modified strains of these fruits and vegetables that we know and love, so that they don't produce seeds, so that we become completely dependent on a centralized, corporatized food system.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think to a large extent, I mean, we already have, maybe not to that extent of, the genetically modified fruits and seeds and things, but the majority of people, certainly that I know and we deal with in, urban and suburban settings, they don't know the first thing about how to work the land or how to grow a garden or any of that stuff. And the whole thing about consuming meat is, I think for most people, it's a convenient and reliable source of protein, which
it's ubiquitous.
But it's conditioning. Like, we've been conditioned to depend on this system, and most people are taught not to question and just like, this is the world I was given, as Tupac said. So who am I to change it? But change will only come if we look at ourselves and make a change at ourselves.
Absolutely.
So if someone was interested in trying to make this change and trying to adapt either a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, or even just to say, I'm going to eat less meat, I mean, let's start with that. What are some resources? What are some things that they can think of to kind of start going down that road?
Well, it's easier now than ever. So when I first started doing it, there were no vegan restaurants. There were no vegan options really, even at the grocery store. So now we live in a time where you can go to Burger King and get an Impossible Burger. You can go to Pizzeria Uno and get a vegan pizza or a vegan burger. These Beyond Burgers and the Impossible Burgers are everywhere now, right? You can get Beyond Sausage. I mean, everything, and these things are just shapes. A sausage and a burger is just a patty, and a sausage is just a link, right? these are just shapes. They don't belong to anything. Like there's a lot of semantics about, well, you can't use the word milk, because, milk can only be from a cow. Well, no, it comes from a human breast
Right.
too.
Yeah. Comes from
It
goats,
comes from goats. It comes from it can come in even water. Like when you put paint in the water, white paint in the water.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
It's milky.
Milky.
Yeah.
It's a way to describe things. It's an adjective. I mean,
yeah. Well, and just not to get on too much of a tangent, but one thing that I think of, because I know my kids really like almond milk, which it's like, okay, it's non-dairy, that's good, but my understanding is that the almonds really take a lot of water to grow. So is there a lot
but not
where
much
there's kind of a trade-off with the meat versus the more vegan option, where maybe something is almost the cure is almost as bad as the disease, or what do you think?
Oh no, I if you look at the numbers, it's not even close. I mean, but there's other alternatives. So if you're concerned about almond milk, switch to oat milk, or switch to soy milk, or switch to hemp milk, or switch to hazelnut milk, or cashew milk. There are so many choices.
Yeah.
And the flavors are delicious. Like everybody finds their little favorite, I like the coconut milks myself,
So, I mean, you would encourage people to just kind of do their own research and kind of figure out.
Try them. Just try them. You can't say, you can't be picky or say, I don't like this, because even within that type of milk, right, there are several brands that are offering it.
That's right.
So like my friend, she likes a particular type of soy milk. It has to be this unsweetened, particular brand, original, and like she doesn't like any other soy milk. It's that one.
Right.
So, you just do a little bit of research. It's fun. I mean, I'll tell you what, since becoming vegan, I've tried more types of food and I found more delicious things, and in restaurants and in the markets than I ever have. Like I've tried more things than I would have normally.
And it's interesting because I think one of the sort of ills of our society, even just thinking in terms of food, not even thinking about, environmental stuff or whatever, but, it comes along with the conditioning. I think there's a fear to try or an aversion to trying something new. It's just very discomforting to a lot of people. And it's like, how do you break people out of that mindset?
The way I've seen it happen is when I make something that's really good, and I bring it to a situation, like in my family, like I've converted everyone in my family on some level just by doing this, by making dishes that everybody knows and love. I make paella. I make baked mac and cheese. I make spaghetti bolognese. I make, you can make any dish you can think of that's your favorite dish. It can be done. I converted all my favorite Cuban dishes to vegan. And so I'll bring them to a party, or I'll bring them to the family dinner, or I'll feed people, and I'll show them like, look, man, you're not going to compromise flavor.
That's right.
You're not going to compromise nutrients.
Yeah.
You're probably going to shed some weight and get a little better, a little healthier. Like the more you steer towards whole foods, plant-based, the healthier you're going to be.
And that's true. And that's really the kind of the other part of this whole equation is the fact that, yes, we're expending all of this energy and we're sacrificing our environment for this meat that's essentially killing us. I mean, all the evidence points to, the levels of heart disease and even cancers and other things that come from just the large quantities of meat that is in the American diet.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the China study. Some people try to criticize that, but it's the largest, longest, most exhaustive study we have so far on a human population. And they followed hundreds of thousands of Chinese, rural and urban Chinese, and they followed their diets. And the ones that in the rural Chinese follow a very, mostly plant-based. They have some meat in there, but it's very like once a week, and it's very small amounts, and it's stuff that they can grow, like they raise chickens or something in there.
Right.
So it's a much smaller scale, and those people have longevity, and they less inflammation, and can maintain their mobility into old age. And then they were looking at urban Chinese that were living Western diets, that were experiencing affluence, and they were starting to eat more like Americans.
Right.
And those people were developing heart disease and cancer.
You mentioned earlier how about you used to really like sushi, so you don't eat fish anymore. Is there an environmental component to like the fishing industry?
Yeah, it's just overfishing. I mean, they're going out with these trawlers, and they're just grabbing everything. So they're scraping the whole floor and grabbing anything that catches that in that net.
Right.
So you've got dolphins in there. You've got coral reefs getting caught up in those nets. You've got every fish that just happens to be in that vicinity gets caught up, and a lot of those don't go to market. They just die and just get thrown back in. And they don't have a chance to repopulate fast enough. Like, the demand is so high, especially in places like China. In Japan. The demand is so high that they're literally fishing the waters clear.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing but jellyfish will be left.
So I want to ask you something, just because it's something that we're going through now. COVID is an environmental issue, yay or nay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it has a lot to do with animal agriculture.
Yeah, a lot.
Every pandemic is zoonotic in nature. It always comes from these filthy slaughterhouse conditions.
The fact that this in particular pandemic is something that, I mean, you literally catch it through the air. It's literally in the air, it's in your environment. I mean, if nothing else, I just think it would behoove us to think more in these terms of like cleanliness of our air, our water, our food, our everything. Like, it's important. It is important. We can't just slough it off like it's nothing,
Yeah, I know. I mean, cleanliness is next to godliness. It's like I'm not religious, but like the older I get and the more I learn, the more I believe in that.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be clean in your environment. Everybody wants that, and you want your inside to be clean as well.
That's right.
But there is no way. We're learning that as well as we become more globalized. There's no place you can just sweep this stuff under the rug. It's all connected.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, all the garbage and everything that we just think, okay, well, I'll throw it away and it's gone. It's still somewhere.
It's still on this planet.
Yeah. Every yogurt container and soda can and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big story just the other day. That the amount of man-made material now outweighs all the organic life forms on the planet.
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, not unbelievable.
Not surprising, right?
Sadly, yeah. I mean,
and a lot of it is junk. I mean, really.
When I hear about the plastic islands, the size of Texas and whatnot, floating around in the Pacific Ocean, it's like, how is that acceptable? Like, how are we just like, well, that's just how it goes? It's like, you can't tell me that we can't figure out, like, us people who have figured out how to put a man on the moon and how to build a Hoover Dam.
That's why I don't believe that politics.
Well,
politics is not going to help us solve these problems, right?
You're right.
Because politicians are going to, they work for the corporations, these corporations that pollute, that should be responsible. Like, why isn't Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola responsible for all these plastic bottles?
Yeah.
Like, what? No. They sell it to you. Why? And then it's like, it's not their concern anymore.
Yeah.
Why aren't they concerned?
The interesting thing about that, though, is I think, like, because, I agree. And I think going back to where I started with this is 4 years ago, when I looked at the direction that politically the country was going in, I was like, well, that's it. We cannot count on our government to do anything about the environment. And, they're talking obviously about, the Green New Deal and all, and we'll see what happens, if anything, with that. But it seems to me like, okay, well, the alternative then is, if the government's not going to do it, it has to be people in business, in industry, and like you said, somebody at Coca-Cola is going to have to wake up and say, oh, yeah, we got to do something about this,
But
whether or not that will actually happen. But it seems to me
it's not
that's really the only other alternative, is for enough
I don't know.
people to speak
I
up
think there has
about
to be another option. I think there has to be something else, because we're seeing this. Amazon and Walmart are making record profit right
it.
now. Right
Hmm.
now, they're spreading all this junk all around the world, and they're not doing much to help people either. They get tax breaks, and they're just taking in all this profit, and they're giving really very little back.
Mm.
They're not behaving as stewards at all.
Which is
And
completely unsustainable.
right.
So it seems to me at some point somebody's got to be smart enough to say, oh, well, you know what? We like making money, but we can't make money if there's no people here anymore, including us. So
It's very short-sighted thinking, and that's the world we're in, man. Like, I don't see politicians, corporations, millionaires and billionaires really being any kind of use to this problem at all.
yeah,
They will remain silent as long as they are profiting.
yeah,
And really no one's stepping up.
yeah.
So it has to be the people, and we don't know how much. We have no idea how much power we have as consumers.
Yeah, yeah. And that is, you said the word consumer, and that is, to a certain extent, one of the bright points of, as you say, capitalism. Because yes, our dollar does give us power. It's not, it's limited power. Obviously, the fewer dollars you have, the littler power, but it's not nothing either, is it?
Right. I mean, yeah, you add it all up,
Mm-hmm.
you add up all the musicians in the world. Look how much we spend on gear.
Oh my goodness. What a racket, huh?
So we know how to spend.
Yes.
Like, if we did things, and if we just shifted our spending habits, it would be felt.
Mm-hmm.
If you were just to, and I think that musicians, I believe in musicians, and I believe in artists as a kind of like, as the cutting edge of these movements, because we're kind of like the canary in the coal mine. Like, if we don't come back singing, you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
The rest of y'all are in trouble. So
Yeah.
we're kind of a barometer for how the human condition is going to fare. So I believe that I believe that as artists we have a lot of power, and we just don't. But we've been so beaten down by this system that marginalizes us and trivializes our contributions.
Yeah.
That we start to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're just these irresponsible musicians.
Sure. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, I can put my stuff up online and maybe somebody will give me a thumbs up, and you know what I mean? It's like our work has been devalued to such an incredible degree. But like anything, I mean, there's two sides to the coin. On one hand, it's like, yes, we've been devalued, but on the other hand, we've never had more freedom to say and do exactly what we want. It's like, during this time of the pandemic, I've written some material that I've never really talked about politics in my music before. I've never really talked about any, it's always been on my mind, and things like that I'm talking about now with the environment and everything, it's always been on my mind. But now is the time to really speak up, and we have a platform to actually do it. No one's going to stop. No one's censoring me. No one's telling me what I can't say. And,
Exactly. And there's no telling how that thing can spread, right? It can go viral.
Yeah.
For no particular reason. And so we keep putting our little drops in the bucket. We do it because somewhere we know instinctively that that's the natural and the right thing to do.
Mm.
You know, look how long we've been doing it. Look how long we've been doing this for very little reward, really. You know,
Mhm.
masters of their craft. You are a master of your craft.
Oh, well, thank you.
You know, all these cats, all the guys that we know and love and play with, you know, masters, absolutely brilliant. And, you know, we all have to have other jobs. We all have to, you know, so we do our full-time jobs and we do this. And we'll drive, you know, it's a joke. I mean, we'll drive, you know, 500 miles in a $500 car,
Yeah.
you know, with $5,000 worth of gear for $50.
Yeah. It's a meme, but it's also true.
There's some truth in it. That's why it's,
Yeah.
you know, but there's a dedication there. That's why I believe in musicians and I believe in artists more than any other sector of humanity. I think that we have our finger on the pulse, and we can communicate to others.
It's our job. It's our duty, really, to communicate. What are you doing if you're not communicating to the world about something real?
There's really no other point to art if you think about it. You know, it's a form of communication.
Talk about Fireseed and what all it exactly is, because I had an opportunity not too long ago to come down and to your studio and check it all out, and I'm looking at it behind you there, and you know, play a little music with you guys, and it's awesome. I knew that it was important to you, the environmental aspects, but that really is kind of at the heart of what Fireseed is.
Everything in here, like I would say 90% of the stuff in here has been reclaimed, has been taken out of the landfill, or claimed before it reached the landfill. Rather, we've made art from old houses that were taken apart and deconstructed. All the woodwork in here came from old houses and construction sites. We're building guitars and drums and xylophones and instruments out of these things as well. And we would use these instruments and these sculptures and works of art to go in to teach a lesson, you know, and like make a display. We made this enormous fish out of it was like 4,600 CDs, old CDs that were discarded. So we would haul that thing all around, and we would just hang out and we'd play guitars that we made, you know, from discarded pieces of wood and stuff. And we'd be sitting around playing guitars, and people would come up, and if they had a question, we would talk to them.
And so you say you do some educational stuff?
Right here, we would have workshops and field trips for schools, and we would build things with them.
Oh, cool.
So we would find ways, depending on how much time they had, you know, we would build a xylophone that they would take back to their school, or we would work. And then we would work on composition and things, you know. So it's as much about the preservation of the arts, because those are in danger as well as the environment.
Right.
So it's sort of like bringing all of those elements together.
Yeah.
And we would either go to the schools and put on concerts. So I put together a band all on recycled instruments, and we would go in and we would do a PowerPoint presentation. And we would do some fun things, but we would get serious with them too. And we would show them pictures of environmental destruction.
I got to say, man, I mean, as long as I've known you, whatever you're doing, it's always like really interesting. Like you're always like, you must never get bored. You always seem to be into something like just really far out, you know?
Thank you, man. Yeah. I try not to be bored. I don't really know what it is anymore, actually.
Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Are there any other points that you want to let people know about?
You know, we're past the point of no return on some of this stuff. What we're handing to our children and future generations is going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult, but we're still. We are love, essentially. We are love. And, you know, find that place. Everybody, open your heart and find that place.
I really want to thank Patiño for taking the time to sit and talk with me. And I want to thank you at home for taking the time to give us a listen. Once again, you can check out Patiño's website at fireseedartstudios.com. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I upload a new episode of the show. We'll be back with more episodes very, very soon, so I hope you'll join us again soon. In the meantime, remember that every journey begins with a step, and every step we take towards understanding begins with a conversation. My name is Big Ben Hillman. Until next time, peace.